She walked in for a job interview, and the CEO froze when he saw her face. Camila Rivera stood in front of the cracked mirror in her small apartment, adjusting the collar of the navy blazer she had bought just 2 days earlier. The price tag had nearly made her change her mind, but she'd torn it off anyway. First impressions mattered. She knew that better than anyone. The woman staring back at her looked calm, professional, and composed, but beneath the surface, her heart was racing. At 28, Camila had learned how to hide fear behind confidence, exhaustion behind elegance, and desperation behind a steady smile. The apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of the old refrigerator and the faint breathing of her son asleep in the next room. 5-year-old Mateo lay sprawled across his tiny bed, one arm hugging a worn stuffed dinosaur, dark curls falling into his face. Camila paused at the doorway, her hand resting lightly on the frame as she watched him sleep. Everything she did, every late night, every rejection, every sacrifice, was for him. "Mommy has a very important meeting today," she whispered, brushing a kiss against his forehead. Mateo stirred but didn't wake. Camila swallowed hard, straightened her spine, and turned away before emotion could weaken her resolve. Kane Global Solutions. The name echoed in her mind like a promise and a threat. The company was legendary. A corporate empire spanning technology, real estate, and international consulting. Their headquarters dominated the city skyline, 40 floors of glass and steel, visible even from Camila's neighborhood miles away. People like her didn't get interviews there. Single mothers from overlooked zip codes didn't get calls from elite HR directors. And yet 2 days ago her phone had rung. "Ms. Rivera? This is Human Resources from Kane Global. We'd like to invite you for an in-person interview." She had nearly dropped the phone. Now, as the elevator shot upward through the gleaming tower, Camila clutched her portfolio tighter, palms damp with nerves. The lobby alone felt like another world. White marble floors, abstract art installations, employees gliding past in tailored suits as if they belonged to something she had only ever watched from the outside. The receptionist looked her up and down briefly before forcing a polite smile. Camila recognized the look immediately. The subtle judgment. The quiet calculation. She'd seen it her entire life. "Name?" the woman asked. "Camila Rivera. Interview with HR." Pause. Fingers tapping on the keyboard. Then surprise flickered across the receptionist's face. 40th floor. "Ms. Adler will meet you." Camila exhaled slowly as she stepped into another elevator, reminding herself she had earned this moment. She hadn't cheated. She hadn't begged. Her resume was strong. Her work spoke for itself. Still, insecurity whispered cruel doubts in her ear. What if they realize you don't belong here? What if this is a mistake? The doors opened to a breathtaking reception area flooded with sunlight. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the entire city beneath her feet. Everything smelled expensive: leather, polished wood, subtle cologne. A woman in her 50s approached, silver hair styled neatly, eyes sharp but kind. "Ms. Rivera, welcome. I'm Margaret Adler, Director of Human Resources," she said, shaking Camila's hand firmly. "Your portfolio impressed us." Camila felt a spark of hope ignite in her chest. They walked through sleek hallways lined with awards and framed magazine covers featuring Kane Global's success stories. Margaret explained the role: executive assistant and strategic liaison to the CEO himself. Demanding hours. High expectations. Exceptional compensation. "Are you comfortable working under intense pressure?" Margaret asked, studying her carefully. "I've been doing that my whole life," Camila replied, her voice steady. Margaret smiled. "Good answer." They stopped in front of massive double doors. "Final interviews are conducted personally by Mr. Kane," Margaret said. "He has strong instincts." The doors opened. Camila stepped inside, and the world tilted. The man behind the desk stood slowly as if time itself had stalled. Tall, broad-shouldered, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that screamed authority. His dark hair was neatly styled, his jaw strong, his posture confident. But it was his eyes. Green. Sure. Familiar. Her breath caught painfully in her throat. 5 years ago. A hotel bar in another city. A night meant to be forgotten. The stranger who had listened when she cried about her life falling apart. The man whose quiet laughter had made her feel seen. The one-night escape that became a secret she carried alone. Sebastian Kane. CEO. Billionaire. Her interviewer. His expression flickered, just for a fraction of a second, but she saw it. Recognition. Memory crashing down on him all at once. "Ms. Rivera," he said carefully. "Please have a seat." Camila's legs felt weak as she moved forward, forcing professionalism to override panic. Margaret sat nearby, unaware of the storm raging silently between them. Sebastian reviewed her resume, his gaze intense, unreadable. Your background in digital strategy is impressive. Tell me about your most successful campaign. Camila spoke, her voice steady despite the way her heart thundered. She described projects she had led, brands she had helped revive, problems she had solved with creativity and grit. Sebastian listened closely, too closely. His eyes lingered not just on her words but on her face, her hands, the sound of her voice. He remembered. Excellent, he said finally. This position requires loyalty, discretion, and flexibility. Long hours. Travel. Do you have any personal obligations that might interfere? The question felt heavier than it should have. I manage my responsibilities effectively, Camila replied. My work always comes first when I commit. Sebastian leaned back slowly. Your family? Margaret shifted uncomfortably. That's not. I'm a single mother, Camila said calmly, and it has never held me back. Something passed through Sebastian's eyes, something raw. Regret? The father? He asked quietly. He's not involved, Camila said firmly. It's just been my son and me. The interview continued, every question layered with unspoken meaning. When Margaret stepped out briefly, silence swallowed the room. Sebastian stood, walking toward the window. You disappeared, he said without turning around. No name. No goodbye. That night was a mistake, Camila whispered. One I never intended to repeat. He turned, closing the distance between them. It wasn't a mistake to me. She stood abruptly. If this affects your ability to judge me fairly, I understand. I'll leave. He studied her for a long moment, then his voice changed. Professional. Controlled. The job is yours, he said. Starting salary $120,000. Benefits included. Camila froze. I accept, she said instantly. As she left the office, Sebastian's voice stopped her at the door. This role requires trust, he said. I expect professionalism. She met his gaze. You'll get it. That night, Camila sat at her kitchen table watching Matteo color superheroes. His green eyes exactly like Sebastian's, lifted toward her. Mommy, you look scared, he said softly. She smiled weakly. Just thinking, baby. As she tucked him into bed, he asked the question that always broke her heart. Do you think my daddy would like me if he met me? Camila swallowed the truth and whispered, any father would be lucky to have you. But as she lay awake staring at the ceiling, one thought echoed relentlessly through her mind. The past had found her. And it wasn't leaving quietly. They whispered about the CEO's new assistant, not knowing who she really was. Monday morning arrived too quickly. Camila stood once again in front of the Kane Global Tower, this time not as a hopeful applicant, but as an employee. The badge clipped to her blazer felt heavier than it should have, as if it carried the weight of every secret she was hiding. She straightened her shoulders and walked inside, refusing to let fear dictate her posture. She had earned this place, no matter how complicated the truth had become. The executive floor buzzed with controlled chaos. Phones rang, assistants moved briskly between offices, and conversations in multiple languages blended into a hum of corporate power. This was where decisions were made, decisions that shaped markets, livelihoods, entire cities. And Camila, the woman so many people underestimated at first glance, now sat at the desk just outside the CEO's office. Margaret Adler gave her a brief orientation, handing over a tablet filled with schedules, contacts, and protocols. Mr. Kane is demanding, she said carefully. Most assistants don't last long. But something tells me you will. Camila smiled politely. She didn't trust her voice yet. Through the glass wall, she could see Sebastian pacing during a conference call, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up. He looked every bit the powerful executive the world feared and admired. Yet every so often, his eyes drifted toward her desk, and each time they did, Camila felt the invisible thread tightening between them. Their first direct interaction came before noon. I need the Asia-Pacific projections, Morrison files, and coffee, Sebastian said, stepping out of his office. Immediately. How do you take your coffee? Camila asked, fingers already flying across her keyboard. He paused. Just long enough. Black. 2 sugars, he said quietly. Though I suspect you already know that. The words landed like a challenge. Camila met his gaze without flinching. I learned quickly. Throughout the day she proved herself indispensable. She anticipated his needs before he voiced them. Organized meetings with surgical precision. fielded calls from people who assumed she was just another assistant, only to realize she held more authority than they expected. Still, the whisper started. She caught fragments as she walked past conference rooms. Too young. Pretty enough to distract him. Probably just another favor. The comments stung, but Camila had learned long ago that silence was sometimes the sharpest weapon. She focused on her work. Let results speak. Then came Carmen. Carmen Delgado swept into the office late Tuesday morning like a storm dressed in silk. Platinum hair. Designer heels. Confidence born from generational wealth. She didn't ask permission to enter Sebastian's office, and she didn't bother acknowledging Camila at first. "Sebastian, darling," Carmen said sweetly. "You've been avoiding my calls." Sebastian's jaw tightened. "You should have scheduled an appointment." Carmen laughed lightly, then finally glanced at Camila. Her eyes lingered, cool and assessing. "Your assistant?" "Yes," Sebastian replied. "Camila Rivera." Carmen smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "She's charming. You always did enjoy surrounding yourself with attractive employees." The insult was deliberate. Camila felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she didn't look up from her screen. She had endured worse, from landlords, from managers, from strangers who assumed she was less than because of where she came from. Sebastian's voice hardened. "That's inappropriate." Carmen tilted her head. "Relax. I was complimenting her." But the damage was done. Later that afternoon, Camila overheard Carmen on the phone in the hallway. "Yes, she's young. And very convenient. I doubt she'll last." The words followed Camila home that night, echoing in her mind as she helped Mateo with homework. "Mommy," Mateo said suddenly, "why do people think some jobs are only for special people?" Camila froze. "Because some people forget that everyone is special," she said gently. The next day everything changed. Her phone rang mid-morning. Rosa, the neighbor who watched Mateo, was crying. Mateo had a fever. He was shaking. Camila didn't hesitate. "I need to leave," she told Sebastian, panic breaking through her professionalism. "My son is sick." Sebastian looked up instantly. "How sick?" "I don't know yet." "Where is he?" "At home." Sebastian stood. "I'm driving." "No. That's not a suggestion." They reached the hospital in record time. Sebastian pulled strings, made calls, demanded attention. When Camila saw Mateo lying pale and weak in the hospital bed, her knees nearly buckled. And then Sebastian saw him. The green eyes. The familiar face. The unmistakable truth. Sebastian froze. "That's my son," he whispered. Camila met his gaze, tears streaming down her face, and nodded once. The confrontation came later, raw, painful, unavoidable. "You kept him from me," Sebastian said, his voice trembling with anger and shock. "I protected him," Camila shot back. "From a world that eats women like me alive." The truth settled between them like a living thing. When Mateo woke, he looked at Sebastian curiously. "You have the same eyes as me." Sebastian smiled, for the first time without armor. "We do, don't we?" That night, Sebastian followed them home. The modest apartment told a story no headlines ever could. Love, sacrifice, strength. Toys repaired instead of replaced. A child raised with kindness instead of privilege. "I want to be part of his life," Sebastian said quietly. Camila looked at him steadily. "Then you'll have to learn how to respect the life we already built." Sebastian left that night changed. But the world wasn't ready. By morning, cameras crowded the building. Headlines screamed. "Billionaire CEO's secret child revealed. Assistant or affair." Camila stepped out of the elevator into chaos, and realized the judgment she'd faced all her life was about to become public. They tried to shame her in public, not knowing she was about to break the system. The cameras were already rolling when Camila stepped out of the elevator. Flashbulbs exploded like lightning. Reporters shouted questions over one another. Security guards struggled to hold the line as journalists pressed closer, hungry for scandal. Kane Global's pristine lobby, once a symbol of power and control, had turned into a circus. "Ms. Rivera, are you the CEO's secret lover? Did you get your job because of the child? Was the pregnancy planned to trap him?" Camila froze for half a second. That half second was all the media needed. Phones rose higher. Headlines were written in real time. The narrative was forming without her permission, without facts, without mercy. Sebastian emerged moments later, his presence shifting the air instantly. The shouting grew louder. "Mr. Kane, is this your son? Are you stepping down? Did you abuse your power?" Sebastian raised a hand. Silence fell not because the reporters respected him, but because they feared him. "There will be a statement later today," he said coldly. "My family will not be harassed." Family. The word echoed in Camila's chest. Inside the executive floor, the damage was already spreading. Whispers followed her everywhere. Employees who had smiled politely before now avoided eye contact. Some stared openly. Others whispered behind glass walls, assuming Camila couldn't hear them. She planned this. Classic gold digger move. Single mom from nowhere suddenly lands in the CEO's office? Camila sat at her desk, hands shaking as she opened her inbox. Anonymous messages had already started arriving. "You should be ashamed. Women like you ruin companies. Hope the money was worth it." She swallowed hard and kept working. Margaret Adler appeared at her desk mid-morning, face tense. "Camila, the board is demanding answers. This situation puts the company at risk." "I understand," Camila replied quietly. "I'm prepared to resign if necessary." Margaret hesitated. That may not be enough. In the boardroom upstairs, powerful men and women debated Camila's existence like a liability on a balance sheet. "She's a distraction. She compromises leadership integrity. She's a PR nightmare." Sebastian listened, jaw tight. "You're missing the point," he said sharply. "She's qualified. She's competent. And she's done nothing wrong." One board member scoffed. "Public opinion doesn't care about facts." That afternoon, Kane Global released a carefully worded statement. Neutral. Polished. Empty. No mention of Camila's name. By evening, the silence felt louder than any accusation. At home, Camila sat on the couch staring at the TV as commentators debated her character. She knew exactly what she was doing. These women wait for opportunities like this. Power dynamics make consent questionable. Matteo climbed into her lap, small arms wrapping around her neck. "Mommy, why are people mad at you?" Camila held him tightly. "Because they don't know the whole story." "Do you?" he asked innocently. She smiled through tears. "Yes, baby. I do." The next morning, the humiliation escalated. Kane Global's internal forum exploded with anonymous posts questioning Camila's credibility. Her work was suddenly scrutinized. Mistakes others had made were attributed to her. Every success was dismissed as favoritism. Then came the meeting. Camila was summoned to a closed-door session with HR and legal counsel. "This is temporary," the lawyer said stiffly. "But for optics, we're placing you on administrative leave." "For optics," Camila repeated softly. "You'll continue to be paid," Margaret added quickly. "This isn't disciplinary." But it felt like exile. Camila packed her desk under watchful eyes. The same coworkers who once needed her help now pretended she didn't exist. As she stepped into the elevator, Carmen Delgado stood waiting. Carmen smiled slowly. "Well," she said. "That didn't last long." Camila met her gaze, calm despite the ache in her chest. "You seem pleased." "I warned Sebastian," Carmen replied. "Women like you don't belong in rooms like this." Camila leaned closer. "Women like me built rooms like this. You just inherited keys." The elevator doors opened. Camila walked out with her head held high. That night she made a decision. She opened her laptop and logged into a cloud folder she hadn't touched in years. Inside were campaigns she had designed, strategies she had authored, data-driven models she had built, many of which Kane Global had implemented long before she ever walked into the building. Ideas they had profited from. Ideas credited to others. She began organizing files. Emails. Timestamps. Proof. Across the city, Sebastian sat alone in his penthouse, staring at a photo Matteo had drawn of their family. Guilt pressed heavily on his chest. His phone buzzed. A message from Camila. "I won't be silent anymore." Sebastian closed his eyes. He knew exactly what that meant. And so did everyone who had underestimated her. They tried to erase her. Until the truth went public. Camila did not sleep that night. While the city outside her apartment glowed with neon indifference, she sat at the small kitchen table, laptop open, documents spread around her like pieces of a long-buried truth. Matteo slept peacefully in the next room, unaware that his mother was preparing to step into a storm that could either destroy them or finally set them free. For years, Camila had survived by staying quiet, by working twice as hard for half the recognition, by letting other people take credit while she collected paychecks that barely covered rent. Silence had been her shield, but silence had also been her cage. She organized the files carefully, campaign drafts, metadata logs, internal emails, timestamps proving authorship. Strategies she had pitched years earlier at her previous firm, later acquired quietly by Kane Global. Concepts that had generated millions. Concepts now attached to names that were not hers. At dawn she sent one email. It wasn't to the press. It wasn't to social media. It wasn't emotional. It was factual. She sent it to the Kane Global board. Subject line: Attribution, Ethics and Accountability. By mid-morning the city was buzzing again. This time not with rumors, but with questions. Inside Kane Global, panic spread faster than any scandal before it. Executives huddled in offices. Legal teams scrambled. The board convened an emergency session. Sebastian arrived early, his face unreadable. He had read Camila's email twice already. Each time, the weight of it pressed heavier on his conscience. The boardroom filled with tension. "She's bluffing," one director said. "She's emotional," another added. "She's trying to leverage sympathy." Sebastian finally spoke. "No," he said calmly. "She's telling the truth." Silence fell. He slid a folder across the table. "I verified the data myself. Independent timestamps. Third-party servers. Her work predates our acquisitions." One board member paled. "That's impossible." Sebastian leaned forward. "What's impossible is how easy it was to overlook her." At the same time, Camila walked into a small law office across town, her shoulders squared, her voice steady. The attorney listened carefully, eyes widening as the scope of the evidence became clear. "You realize," the attorney said slowly, "this isn't just a credit dispute. This is systemic exploitation." Camila nodded. "I know." Within hours the story broke, this time written by facts, not gossip. Former executive assistant alleges corporate credit theft. Documents show years of unacknowledged work. The narrative shifted. Fast. The same commentators who had mocked Camila now spoke cautiously. Analysts dissected her files live on air. Independent experts confirmed the authenticity. Social media erupted, but not against her. Against the system. Women shared stories of being sidelined. Single mothers spoke out. Employees posted screenshots of ideas stolen, promotions denied, voices ignored. Kane Global stock dipped sharply. And then came the press conference. Sebastian stepped onto the stage alone. No script. No PR handler. "I failed," he said plainly. "As a leader. As an employer. And as a man who benefited from a system that rewarded silence and punished honesty." Gasps rippled through the room. "Camila Rivera is not a scandal," he continued. "She is proof that talent doesn't always wear privilege." He paused. "Effective immediately, I am stepping back from my role until an independent audit is complete." The room exploded with questions. Camila watched the broadcast from home, Mateo curled beside her. "Mommy," he asked softly, "is the bad part over?" She kissed his hair. "We're getting there." Later that evening, Sebastian stood outside her apartment door. No suit. No authority. Just a man stripped of armor. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Not as a CEO. As a human being." Camila studied him carefully. "Sorry doesn't fix systems." "I know," he replied. "But accountability might." Inside Kane Global, consequences followed swiftly. Executives resigned. Credits were reassigned. Public apologies issued. Policies rewritten. And Carmen Delgado? Her interview didn't go as planned. When asked about her comments toward Camila, she laughed dismissively. That clip went viral. Within days, her own business partners distanced themselves. Contracts dissolved. Invitations disappeared. Instant karma didn't announce itself loudly. It simply arrived. Camila received a call from the board that evening. They wanted to meet. Not to silence her. To listen. She looked at Mateo, then back at the phone. "Yes," she said calmly. "I'll come." This time on her terms. They tried to break her reputation. But she rewrote the ending. The boardroom looked different when Camila walked in this time. The same long table. The same glass walls. The same skyline beyond the windows. But the power in the room had shifted. No one interrupted her. No one avoided her gaze. Every person present stood when she entered, not out of obligation but respect. Camila took her seat slowly, placing her notebook on the table. She didn't dress to impress. She dressed to remind them who she was. Calm. Prepared. Unshakable. "Thank you for coming," the chairperson said. "We owe you an apology." Camila nodded once. "Apologies are a start. Change is the goal." The meeting lasted 3 hours. She spoke clearly, firmly, without anger, without pleading. She outlined what had happened, not just to her, but to countless others whose work had been quietly absorbed, repackaged, and reassigned. She didn't ask for revenge. She demanded accountability. By the end of the meeting, the board had agreed to everything. Public credit for her work. A formal acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Structural reforms to prevent it from happening again. And a new role, one that placed her in leadership, not proximity. Camila declined the title they offered her. "I don't want power over people," she said. "I want power to change how people are treated." They listened. That afternoon, Kane Global released a second statement, this one unlike any before it. Campaigns attributed to Camila Rivera. Corporate audit confirms systemic credit misallocation. New equity and ethics initiative launched. The internet reacted instantly. This time, Camila's name trended for the right reasons. Women reposted her story with pride. Parents shared it with their daughters. Employees across industries recognized themselves in her fight. She didn't give interviews right away. She stayed home with Mateo, helping him build a cardboard castle on the living room floor. "Mommy," he said, gluing two walls together, "are you famous now?" She laughed softly. "No, baby. I'm just heard." That evening, Sebastian came by again, this time with no expectations. "I don't want to control the narrative," he said quietly. "I just want to be present. For him. And, if you'll allow it, for you." Camila looked at him carefully. "Being present means listening," she said. "It means unlearning." "I'm ready," he replied. The next months unfolded steadily, not magically, not perfectly, but honestly. Sebastian followed through. He stepped aside, allowed the audit to run its course, and accepted the consequences publicly. The press moved on, but the impact remained. Camila returned to Kane Global, not as an assistant, not as a secret, not as a liability, but as a consultant overseeing ethical restructuring and talent attribution. People listened when she spoke now. Not because of scandal. Because of truth. Carmen Delgado's social circle never recovered. Invitations stopped coming. Partnerships dried up. Her dismissive laughter became a cautionary clip used in discussions about entitlement and accountability. Instant karma didn't shout. It corrected. One afternoon, Camila stood at a podium speaking to a room full of young professionals. "Respect isn't something you earn by proximity to power," she said. "It's something you give, especially to those the world overlooks." In the front row, Mateo sat beside Sebastian, swinging his feet proudly. Later that night, as Camila tucked Mateo into bed, he asked, "Mommy, did you win?" She smiled, brushing his hair back gently. "No," she said softly. "We changed the rules." Camila turned off the light and stepped into the quiet hallway, finally breathing freely. She hadn't needed revenge. She hadn't needed validation. She had needed the truth to stand tall. And now it did.